Hey, what's going on? It's Stranger and welcome to another YouTube sound design series. And in today's video, we're going to be making a bass like this. And this bass is commonly called the Ray Kieth bass, named after the legendary jungle producer who made many legendary records in the 90s. And this bass was also used by many other producers in classic records as well as more recent jungle tracks. So we're going to jump right into it and open it up a brand new instance of Massive. And to start, this bass is made with two detuned sine waves. So just make sure that your oscillators are both used on the sine wave setting. So I'm just going to dial this counterclockwise. So we have the sine and we have the sine here already, and that's great. Now the next step is to detune the two sine waves, and we want to detune it just by a couple semitones. So we just click and drag the first one up to about a quarter of a semitone, and this one we're going to bring down negative a quarter of a semitone. Now let's listen to what we got. Now we got to bring this guy up, otherwise we're not going to hear it. So that's the volume of oscillator 2. Okay, we're almost there. The secret to creating the Ray Kieth bass in Massive X is to adjust the setting here, which is kind of a modulation setting for the oscillators. And the setting we want is the format. And we're going to do the same for oscillator 2. Select format. And then adjust the format knob counterclockwise to around here, about 9 o'clock. I just find that it sounds best at this setting. However, you can experiment and play around and move the setting a bit more or a bit less from my preferred setting. But watch how the sound now evolves. There's a little more character now than just two detuned sine waves. Now, because the detuned sine waves are phasing, and that's natural when you have two oscillators that are a bit detuned, that they have that phasing, that kind of that wah wah wah, that wobble kind of sound. The problem with that, now depending on what you want, it might not be a problem, but for some might consider it being a problem that the sub bass is phasing, so you don't get one consistent tone. If you want a consistent tone, then you would turn on an additional oscillator that would be our root bass frequency. So to do that, we're gonna turn on the insert effect for B and select oscillator. Okay. Now this provides us a third oscillator. If we click on this saw selection here, we can actually select sine. We want the sine for a pure bass sound. Now the mix has to be adjusted accordingly. Currently the mix is all the way to 100% wet, so all you're going to hear is this oscillator here. Now if we dial this back to here, then we only get the oscillators 1 and 2. So you want it somewhere in between, somewhere like this. And actually, we should be filtering the low end from these two oscillators so that the only bass we get is from the sine wave. So a way to do that is we could select the high pass frequency from this filter. So select Blue Monarch so that we get the high pass, and then choose HP for high pass, and then adjust this frequency. You you're gonna have to play it by ear, but I'm just gonna guess that that's gonna remove enough of that low end, and then we're gonna bring the low end back on oscillator, this oscillator here. Adjust the taste. Now you might need to increase the overall volume of your preset. So this little triangle here can be increased. Just click and drag up. Now since we're playing bass, let's head over to the voice panel here and ensure that we are playing in mono, meaning that we'll never have two notes overlapping. Mono just means that we have one voice at a time when we play this instrument. And another thing we can set is to reset the engine every time you play a new note. So currently it's at free run, meaning that the oscillator is running continuously even though we're not hitting a note. So every time we hit a note, it lands on a different phase of our oscillator. So we kind of get subtle fluctuations, and sometimes that's desirable. But for more modern sounds, we might want every instance of the note to be the same. So if we want that, then make sure that reset all is turned on, and that just resets all the settings and phases of your oscillators when you trigger a new note. Okay, now I'm just gonna sequence in two notes here, and then we'll play an amen beat over this. We just want a little pause at the end of the last at the end of the phrase. And so far so good. We now have a classic sounding Ray Kieth bass. Now on to more interesting sound design. If we want to modernize the sound, we have some options here. And the first option I like to try is adding some distortion to this sound. So under Insert C, we're going to click and we're going to enable the distortion. And I like the hard clipper. So there's a couple algorithms for distortion here. So we're going to select hard clip. Let's dial mix all the way counterclockwise, and then we'll slowly bring in and dial in our desired setting. Okay. Actually, we'll leave it at 100. We'll start at 0 drive. So notice. Okay, so let's play the beat. Bring the volume down a bit, it's a bit loud. It's sounding pretty nasty now. Now another step to modernize the sound is to enable Unison mode. So we're going to enable Unison mode. Let's try 3 voices and adjust the spread of the voices. Now you may want to adjust the stereo width. That's sounding good so far. And there you have it. We have a pretty nasty Ray Kieth sounding bass sound. It's kind of leaning towards the Reese sound as well. It's all related in the end. We're just making nasty bass sounds. And as you can see, it's pretty simple. All we need is 2 detuned sine waves, and then we adjust the format settings for each of these oscillators, and then we add an additional oscillator to add the root bass frequency. We high pass the two main oscillators that provide the character of the sound, and then we can modernize with adding distortion and unison mode. Okay, so really get that down. Master the Ray Keith bass. It's one of the most iconic bass sounds in electronic music, and namely jungle and drum and bass music, and it's a great sound to have in your repertoire, and I encourage you to really get it down. And let me know if you like this video, if you found it helpful. Make sure to like and subscribe to my channel, and let me know also what you'd like to learn in future videos. And until then, we'll see you at the next video.